You've tuned into Tomcat Tales, the story of Ashland's legends from the gridiron, the court, the diamond, and beyond. It's a deep dive into Ashland Tomcat sports history. Now, here's your host, Mark Maynard.
Welcome back to Tomcat Podcast, and we're glad you joined us today. I have a special guest with me all the way from Florida, and that is Larry Castle. And Larry, for those who may not know him, may not remember him, he played in the 1950s for the Tomcats, late 50s, played basketball and baseball, had one of the better senior seasons of any player in Tomcat history when you look back at it, and the statistics certainly reveal that. He also was a coach for national champions in tennis, and he coached high school basketball and I think some college basketball maybe. I'm not sure about that. We'll get into that. Anyway, Larry, good to have you on the show.
Thanks, Mark. It is a pleasure for me to be able to talk with you, and I've kept up with all your podcasts so far, and I find them very interesting, and I hope we can talk about some things today that people can relate to and will be interested in. Before I get to telling my wild and woolly tales, I want to say thank you for what you do. I talked to a lot of the guys that, from Ashland that I played ball with, and we've kept contact. Howard Humphreys and I talk quite often, a couple times a month usually, and usually the first thing we get out of the way is, did you see what Mark's doing? And have you been keeping up with this and with that? That's Mark's doing. And I talked with David Patton and Gary Wright and Lee Hart and Dick Fillmore and just a bunch of the guys. And the conversation, if it doesn't start with, usually gets around to, what Mark's doing. And we all appreciate it. You're kind of a link for many of us. Howard's in Texas and Patton's in Georgia and Gary's down here in Florida and I'm in Florida. And our link with Ashland and the Tomcats and everything is basically you. And, of course, I've said this before. At the CP1 induction a couple years ago, I said Mark Maynard is Tomcat most valuable player. Mark Maynard is Ashland, Kentucky most valuable player. And I haven't changed my mind about that. I always think that. And it's not just sports. You're involved in so many really wonderful and meaningful things. And I just wanted to say that to get it off the top because that's where it's at.
Well, I appreciate that very much. I've really been pleased with how the podcast has gone. I didn't know that much even about podcasts till I started kind of doing one. And we've reached into 26 states and actually 8 countries since we started this, and that's pretty cool when you think about it. There's Tomcats everywhere,
Yeah, I've enjoyed all of them, and of course I can really relate to Howard and Herb and Dick, and John Koskin was a senior when I was a sophomore, and I know all about him. Been very proud of everything the guys have done, and Ashland just churns out, really, really important and respected people, and Koskin is a good example.
Oh yeah, for sure. We looking into the 50s here, and I think that is an interesting time frame in Ashland history. A lot of great athletes that came through then. Of course, Ashland was probably at its biggest during the 50s, population-wise. So Ashland was the big kid on the block. But you guys ran into some tough teams at Clark County and Mount Sterling and Olive Hill that were just as good and probably some of their better teams, during that time. Your career started in 56, 57. 3 sophomores made that team. It wasn't easy for a sophomore to make the team back then, but you and Herb Conley and Dick Fillmore made the basketball team. What was that like? Well,
it was an amazing thing. We had summer practice between our 9th grade and 10th grade year. It was summer practice / tryouts. I don't know even whether that's legal anymore or not, but it was legal then, and we had it. And Coach Lavoie, I don't know, we must have had 40 guys or so in the gym that summer. And for the varsity squad, there was 12, 8 seniors, 1 junior, and he picked Dick and Herb and I. And I don't know, we were almost always a threesome. Even though I went to Coles and they went to Putnam, we did a lot of things, you know, the same. We played on a lot of the same baseball teams, etc. And I don't know what his reasoning was, but he didn't have but one junior on the team. And but I was thrilled and delighted because I'd always just been a Tomcat supporter, and I went to every game I could, even in grade school. My dad would take me, and I had so many heroes. And to be on the varsity myself as a sophomore was very important in my life.
Who were the guys you kind of looked up to, you know, leading up to?
I've got so many heroes, it's unbelievable. But, you know, I'd have to start with Brother Atkins and that bunch. And even before that, Eve Woods. I was aware of John Eggleston and Jeep Clark, but I really got into it with the 54 team with Brother and some of those. And then Bill Gray came along, and Jerry Henderson, and then George Carroll, of course, Bill Kazee, and then George Carroll. And I guess my biggest hero was George because, you know, I was in the 9th grade when he was a senior, and had actually played a lot of alley ball with him. We played all over Ashland every time we could find the court, and I just loved watching him play, and I could relate to kind of the way he played because I tried to play like him.
Let's talk about him just a little bit. I think he's somebody that gets lost sometimes in national history, but he could shoot it. I mean, probably as well as anybody. And I know we have talked some before, and you've written some posts on Facebook and things, but I'd like to talk about that the Carr Creek game as well.
Right. Well, you know, I don't know why George doesn't get the credit he deserves, the late George Carroll, but I think he's the best shooter that's ever played at Ashland. And he earned it because I've never seen anyone that liked to shoot the basketball in practice. I mean, you know, George would shoot every day, several times a day at different places. And but he was not only a great passer, he was a good athlete. He was a great team guy, and he could score. I mean, the Carr Creek game was a good example. My dad and I were sitting right on the front row of that game, and George got 52 points that night. And it was just step across the center court line, a couple of steps in, and he let it go. And he was not missing that night. He even made a running hook shot that night. And everybody was just, you know, we were just awestruck with what he did. And it's been well documented, but the Globetrotters were there, and they were just amazed by him. And Coach Rupp was there with Coach Lancaster, and they were amazed by him. Why he didn't go to Kentucky, I don't know, because he was good enough to play, and some of the guards they played right after his time, George was much better than they were.
But tell that story, too, for people who may not have heard it, about when, of course, it was a huge crowd, the Globetrotters in town, and the game was at the Armory. And did they play the first game, the Globetrotters, or did they play after you guys?
They played after.
Okay. So huge crowd there. So, and Rupp and Harry come. So you take it from there.
Yeah, they came in late actually, and they were, you know, they didn't have a seat, and they were escorted in by some of the officials of the high school, and I don't remember who it was. It was probably one of the coaches, or it was maybe even the principal, but they were given good seats and everything. And the Globetrotters were sitting pretty much right behind where we were sitting in the middle of the court. Now, back then, it changed a lot, but back then the team sat on the ends, and they were on the left side, and us in the middle. We had the Globetrotters sitting behind us, and the comments they made were amazing. They could not believe George Carroll. They called him Golden Arm and Golden Boy and things like that. And it was just one of those shows that we see, once in a lifetime. And I've seen basketball and coached it and played it my whole life. I've never seen a shooting demonstration like that.
You've told me before too that his shot seldom touched the rim, and the nets sometimes were kind of long, and they would flip back up and get caught on the rim, and you take it from there.
Well, he was so true that night with his shots that everything was all net. Didn't even hit the rims, and it would flip the longer nets up on the rim, and they'd get caught up on top of the rim. The net would. So as Ashland was going back down on the defensive end, Coach Lavoie would walk out. The Ashland bench was right under that, and he's 6'9", so he just reached up, just a slight tiptoe, and pulled the net back down. George and Ashland would come back down the court. George would make another long jump shot. Net would go back up again. Lavoie would go out again and take it down. It must have happened 8 or 10 times.
Oh, my goodness. It is unusual. I know Bobby Shepard, of course, played for Carr Creek, and he ended up going to Kentucky, and he was in that game as well. And obviously, he didn't score 52, and the Tomcats beat Carr Creek that night, 92-78 or something like that.
And 92-85, I think. But
so high-scoring game for sure. So, of course, the fans probably were coming for the Globetrotters, but they might have got a better show from George Carroll that night.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I don't even remember whether we stayed for the whole second game or not, because that was the show that night for sure.
It's interesting, that record stood till I think Marty Thomas broke it in 1993, 92 or 93. I think it's 93. He scored 54 against. Somewhere it was in Tennessee. Shoot, what's the first town in Tennessee you hit? I can't remember the name of it now. Anyway, he hit 54 in that game, and
that's an amazing number of points.
That year George Carroll averaged 24.3 points a game, and that was the all-time record to that point.
Right.
And a few years later, a guy named Larry Castle got close. He was. Year average 23.3, which stood as number 2 until, again, our friend Marty Thomas overtook you.
I don't even think Marty shot threes either.
No, he did. He had 3.
Oh, did he shoot threes? Okay.
He wasn't a three-point shooter, though. That's what I
was thinking.
Yeah, most of his work was inside. They had the three-point shot, and he hit a few, but Marty was, he was a great player, great scorer. He has 2 of the top 3 scoring marks in Ashland history, and he's their all-time scoring leader and all that. So he had a great career, of course, but that's interesting. And of course, you make the team the next year, and as it happens, sophomores don't play, very often. And you probably heard on the podcast the story of what happened on the initiation night when they were going to throw Herb Conley in the swimming pool. And that didn't work out either, I don't guess.
Well, it's funny how those stories, I've heard a lot of stories, and I've told a lot of stories, and you wonder, okay, where were they when that happened? But we had played Bowling Green College High the night before, and we went back to, we were playing Caverna the next day, and we were at the motel. And Robert and Don Wellman and some of them, all the seniors probably. I did get to play a lot against College High because we were killing them. So Herb Dick and I all got to play a lot. And I got hurt that game. I ran into from behind, probably had a torn meniscus, but, they didn't do that back then. And so I had to go to the doctor the next day. Coach Lavoie took me, and I had a big bandage on my leg. So we were in our room. And the seniors all came in, and they said, we're throwing you in the pool. Well, Herb jumped up on the bed, and he said, you're not throwing me in the pool. And Dick followed fairly close behind him. Herb was ready to battle. Dick was reluctant, but he was going to jump up there with Herb. And I was so happy I had my bandage on. But I was not a fighter. And but I was sitting there, and, man, they went to war. Don Wellman and Herb mainly, and then Robert and Dick was throwing his in, and it was a standoff really. And most of us were watching, Howard and Don Church and Dale Griffith. We were all just watching. Coach Lavoie came in. Door opened, he came in. And all he saw was Herb up there just throwing people around and Dick, and he says, and he blamed it all on the sophomores. But he gave me a pass because I was sitting there with a bad leg. But he was ready to send those two guys home on the bus that night.
Wow.
But Robert Wright, who was our diplomatic team member and our leader and everything, he talked to Coach Lavoie and he said, this was our fault. It was an initiation. Wasn't their fault. Wasn't the sophomores' fault. And so Coach Lavoie, he probably would have done some kind of discipline, but he wasn't the kind of guy that was going to take away your basketball career or anything.
Right.
He was upset at the time, but he wouldn't have really done anything, I don't think.
You in that game, by the way, you scored your first Tomcat point.
I did. I scored 4 points that game. And, ironically, it was on the same court at Western that I played my 4 years of college basketball at. And,
how about that? That?
Same court.
So anyway, of course, you scored 8 points your sophomore year. Didn't play a whole lot, obviously, and that was a pretty good team. You guys went 21-6.
Oh yeah, if it hadn't have been for those guys getting off the team, we would have, I think, gone a long way.
Yeah, Don Church and
Robert Wright
were kicked off the team, kind of really more than midway through, actually toward the end.
Actually, it was after the last game. That's been misreported too, because we played Huntington Central our last game of the year, and they were on the team. The next game was the first game of the district, and they were on the team.
So that was, so, wow. And, you guys played Russell earlier in that season and beat them pretty handily, 78-55, and Russell ends up beating 70-64. Now, I've heard, and I don't know if this is true, I can look it up, and I will, that maybe Seidenstricker didn't play in that first game for Russell.
I don't remember whether he played or not, but I do remember that he was awesome in the district.
Oh, yeah.
He played them the second time, and they had a very, very good team. Jim Gallion was a great player, and he was on that team and went on to play for Marshall, and they had McKenzie and Willis at the guards, and they certainly were no slack, but Mickey Seidenstricker got 36 or 38 points. And with Robert and Don, we would have won. Yeah. Without Robert and Don, we couldn't beat them.
Yeah, was it Don Wellman or Don Church? Don
Church.
Don Church, yeah, that's what I think. So, of course, a big highlight that year, I think, was the AIT. Played at the Armory and of course beat Toothpick Jones at Maysville in the semis, 80-79.
Right.
And then Flagstaff and Charlie Osborne, 67-64 in overtime. And great team. Howard Humphreys, of course, was a senior that year. We've mentioned him. He averaged 20.1 points a game. Howard could score it, couldn't he?
Oh, Howard was a player. I was lucky enough to get to play with Howard at Coles. I was a 7th grader on the varsity when he was a 9th grader. So I saw what he could do, from early on. And he was steady. He was clever. He was a great competitor. And his senior year, he was just outstanding. I've often said that if we had gone to state, it's hard to make all-state if you don't go to state.
Yeah.
Very few do. But Howard, if we had gone to state, Howard would have made all-state, first team. No question.
He was Tomcats' leading scorer in 17 of the 27 games that year. So that tells you a little bit right there. Anyway, great player. Of course, he goes on to a good college career as well. So that kind of wraps up your sophomore year. And really, Larry, even your junior year, you're still not playing a lot at this point, or you're not scoring a lot. I don't know if you're playing a lot, but but you are playing more. You scored 76 points that junior year, and you have a new coach, Bob Lavoie. Did he just leave, or was he forced out, or what was the story there?
Well, I think he was forced out. He wound up quitting because sometimes they just make it so hard on you, you want to quit.
Right.
And it was basically, it's a long, long story, but it was basically unfair that Don and Robert got kicked off the team.
Okay.
There's probably a story behind that because as much as I love Coach Lavoie, he was an acquired taste. A lot of people in Ashland didn't like him.
Yeah.
His players loved him. But he would tell the administration what he thought, and he would wind up doing what he wanted to do. And in Ashland, particularly with the administrators we had then, you didn't do that. I don't know whether Don and Robert were scapegoats or what, or they had to, but they got kicked off the team, and there wasn't any getting them back on. The administration wouldn't let them back on, and so Bob Lavoie quit.
Yeah,
and,
interesting.
Yeah.
And of course, Fred Anson comes in. Fred, great football coach. I mean, he knew that game very well. And I don't know if he was just kind of plugged into that position, or I know how that goes sometimes, and that may well been the case, with him. I don't know.
Well, his first year there, he was coaching assistant football coach,
right?
And the reviews on his football coaching was really good.
Yeah.
All the guys, raved about it.
Oh,
He
yeah.
was our baseball coach, and his first year there, my junior year, and we went to the state, so he did well in baseball, and he also coached basketball. Probably the least experience he had of any sport in coaching was basketball, and he was finding his way. He would be the first to admit it. When we lost to Clark County in the regionals, which we had beaten in double overtime in the regular season, we lost to them in the semifinals. They had beaten Olive Hill. We beat Clark County, and Olive Hill beat us. So the three teams in our region were all in the top 10, and the three teams in our region
we're getting ahead
each other.
We're getting ahead a little
he
bit.
told the
That's more your
and everybody, let your Norton out coach me.
right. Oh, wow.
I don't know about that, but I know it was a tough game, and he wasn't quite ready my junior year.
Yeah, that the games with Clark, of course, that was your senior year, and we'll get into that shortly here. But this year, you guys finished 12-14, and there's some new faces on the team, and new leaders and that kind of thing. You guys started off the season. You beat Calixburg by a point, 70-69, and then proceeded to lose the next 5, and that included a loss to Holy Family in AIT.
Yes.
and that probably didn't go over too well.
No, it didn't. We had 13 guys that started at one time or another during the regular season. The first game, Patton and Ross and I, all three started at Catlettsburg. We played the whole first quarter. We were ahead 4 or 6 points. Didn't play the whole rest of the game. I don't know why, but the only reason was we rotated 3 teams that game. And we kind of did that for a while. And Coach Anson could not really settle on a lineup. One of our best players was Talmadge Everman, and Talmadge Everman, after the first game, hardly played the whole rest of the year. I don't really know why. It's just the way it was. So we were all kind of in disarray that year. We did stabilize some because Coach Anson did decide on a lineup with about 10 or 12 or so games to go. And he started Patton and Ross and Jim Harbison, Monty Campbell, and David McGuire. And they were doing well, and then he played Lee Hart quite a bit, and he played me quite a bit. And that was the 7 he kind of decided on, and we did kind of stabilize more or less.
As you look through that season, you're absolutely right, because I'm looking here. You'd won 8 of 10 going into the district, and including you beat Calixburg 80-46 after beating them 1 point in the opener. You know,
and
you beat
Olive Hill on the road,
and you beat, which was quite the feat really to beat them 58-56. You play Raceland first game of the district, and you take care of them. Patton scored 17 in that game. You win 72-57. And then this next game is probably, unfortunately for Ashland and you guys, is probably the defining game of that season. You played Booker T. Washington, and I think that might be the only time Ashland ever played them.
I think you're right. And the first game of the district, Paul Ross got hurt, and Paul was a very, very good guard. Patton and Ross were a good guard combination, and we really missed him. I played a lot that game. Lee Hart played a lot that game.
You scored 9 that game. You scored 9 against them.
And that's the funny thing about it. Both of us had been playing a lot, and both of us had been doing pretty well. And then we played Booker T, and they did have a very talented team. Marshall Banks was an outstanding player. However, he got a technical foul called on him very early in the first quarter and got ejected. Nobody knows why, but he did. So we should have, even without Ross, we should have won that game, but we didn't. And Lee Hart, who was one of our mainstays as our 6th or 7th man, and me, we didn't play that game. I think I played 10 seconds and Lee played 0.
Wow.
And we actually asked Coach Anson about that later, and he's a very honest man. I think a lot of him. And he said, I forgot about you. And if he said he forgot about us, he did.
Wow. That's interesting.
We lost that game. And, I think you're right because it was BTW.
Yeah.
That and the Holy Family game.
Yeah, those two games.
Ashland's first loss to Holy Family also.
Yeah. And the BTW, I remember, of course, Marshall died just this week, or last weekend, I guess. And I know that was, he was a great player for sure. And I remember interviewing him about that game, and he was called for illegal tripping or something, and it's why they threw him out. He said he didn't do it, and of course, the conspiracy theories go from there. We're not going to let the black team win. Basically, is what they were.
I think that might have played in it. I was sitting. I had a good seat. I was sitting right on the bench. I didn't see anything.
Yeah. So it was interesting.
Marshall Banks. I find it hard to believe Marshall would on purpose try to trip anybody.
No, right. He wouldn't.
That's the kind of guy he was.
Anyway, they won 54-46, and then they lost to Russell the next night, so they didn't go to the regional. And the district was so many teams, you had to win a lot of games to get in there. So that kind of concluded your junior season. So let's skip ahead to the senior season. And it was a good year for you guys. You were 21-9, and I think Fred was probably getting his feet settled, on what he had and what this team could do. And as you already stated, you guys, you went to Clark County, beat them in double overtime. You had 28 in that game, Larry. You really exploded as a senior. You became. It looks like you've grown a little bit. You're a little bit taller, and so tell me about that year. You averaged 23.3 points a game after really you hadn't even scored 100 points in your first 2 years.
Right. Well, I did. I was actually 6'1". But I was 6'1" in the 9th grade. So I think several things happened that year. I think it was, to be honest with you, I played so much basketball. I mean, I was wall-to-wall basketball. And I played so much basketball that I was as good physically my junior year as I was my senior year. But nobody really got much of a footing their junior year. Coach, and through the first 4 or 5 games my senior year, I was still playing forward, and I was a guard. That was my natural position. But we had always had Herb and Dick, and I was the tallest, so I played forward most of the time. Not in junior high, not in grade school, but after that, the emergence of Dean Church might have been the biggest thing that happened in my senior year because Dean was so good as a junior that he had to have playing time. So he moved into my slot, and I moved out to guard after about 4 games. And Herb and Dick were going to rotate at the other guard. And after that, we were a much better team. And the reason that I started scoring, I was averaging about 16 a game till I moved out to guard. But I was the primary ball handler. And Coach Anson had told me, he set up out of bounds plays for me. He said that he wanted me to put up 18 to 25 shots a game. Well, that was music to my ears. Because, I mean, that was right. I was a shooter, but I was also a ball handler and a passer. And so I started scoring a lot. I had like 4 or 5 straight games over 30 right after I moved out to guard, and kind of set the tone for the rest of the year. But I'll be honest with you, that was a good team. And we lost only we only had one bad loss. We lost in Inez to a team that we were much better than, but Ashland can't beat Inez at Inez, and you know why. All the coaches of Cousins are refereeing.
Yeah.
But other than that, we didn't have any bad losses. Clark County was a great team. Olive Hill was a great team. Hazard was a great team. Covington Grant was a great team. And the Huntington teams we lost to, we split with both of them, but both of them were ranked in the top 5 in West Virginia. So, we played everybody really well. We played it well in the regional. And I think it was a great year. Dick Fillmore and I played the guards. Herb was really in concentrating on his football.
Yeah.
And after he signed with the University of Kentucky, he knew he had to get bigger and stronger. And Herb's heart was really in the weight room. So he decided, that he would just concentrate on getting fit to play at Kentucky and getting ready. Right. And he dropped off the basketball team early in the year.
Yeah, like in
Dick
January.
and I played the guards with Duke Moore playing some. And then we had Monty at center, Monty Campbell, great leaper, great player. Monty was a really good basketball player. We had Ditto Sparks at one forward. You know what a great shooter he was.
Oh, yeah.
And then we had Dean Church at the other forward with Warner Keynes playing an awful lot of ball for us.
That's a really talented team. I see that stretch you're talking about. You had 33, 32, 33, 22, 30 in that. That was like in a 4-game, 5-game stretch there. That's right. Probably one of the better stretches for an individual in Tomcat history, really. And
John McGill wrote that the 3 straight over 30 was a school record at that time. I don't know.
Oh, there's no question about it. Yeah,
I'm sure Marty Thomas busted that all to pieces, but it was great. I shot a lot, but Coach Anson told me to shoot a lot, and I did hit 47% of my field goals. So, it was a springboard for me, and without that, I don't know that I'd have gotten a scholarship without that year. I don't know. I would have probably at least gone to Berea or someplace like that. But
you ended up.
Yeah, it was a wonderful year for me, and I tell you what, I love those guys. Some of the best guys that have ever played at Ashland and I've ever known. I think of Dick Fillmore, and I think of Monty Campbell, and Jack Polk was one of my neighbors, and we went to school together every day, and just super guys, Harvey Britt and Paul Minsner. Gary Wright, that team was just loaded, not only with good basketball players, but with outstanding individuals.
Yeah. Your last, about, 10 of the last 11 games you led the team in scoring. As you said earlier, of course, you all got some revenge on Booker T. You beat them 69-38 in the district. You won the district, beat Wirtland 72-52, and you advanced to the regional tournament in Mount Sterling. You got a tough draw. You got Mount Sterling right off the bat.
Yeah, it's a good team.
Yeah, but you beat them pretty handily, 54-36. You had 24, and then you guys lost in the semis to Clark, 49-47. Right. I'm sure that was a heartbreaker. So
it really
could have won the region. I mean, certainly good enough to have won the region.
Good enough. Yeah, Vinny, things, you got to be good and you got to be lucky.
Yeah.
And we were good, but we had a bit of bad luck because there were 3 outstanding teams in our region.
Yeah.
And Clark County was one of them. So
you ended up, though, and this is, as we said earlier about All-State, and, like Howard Humphreys not being All-State probably could have been had that team, made it to the Sweet 16. Even though you guys didn't, you were third team All-State Courier-Journal, and that's pretty impressive. I mean, to be on that team.
I was very proud of that and very happy to be there. And I was picked on the East-West All-Star team, but the Western freshman coach that had just been hired, Eck Branham, was All-Star director. And once I had committed to Western, back then you could commit, and then if somebody else wanted to sign you, they could, if it wasn't in the OVC. He was the freshman coach at Western, and Coach Diddle said he didn't want me out there playing in any All-Star games because I was going to Western. But
that's interesting. He didn't want other people to see it.
I'd already signed with him.
Right.
But so I didn't play in the All-Star game. I was a little disappointed about that because I had been picked. But
interesting. So that kind of we'll get into your college shortly, but that concludes your high school, your Tomcat career in basketball, right. and kind of some ups and downs overall, I guess. Some what ifs are in there, no doubt. But you conclude with I think your 23.3 is fourth all time or fourth or fifth. Right. I can't remember. And that's pretty cool when you think that you set your mark, 60 years ago, and
right.
and it's still standing that high. So that, what a great season that was.
Well, I tell you what, I just loved my 3 years playing for the Tomcats, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. It kind of set me up for my whole life, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So you all hit the baseball field. You played baseball every year for the Tomcats as well. You're a CP1 Hall of Fame selection a couple of years ago, and very deserved for that. So let's talk baseball a little bit. Tomcat baseball, how that impacted you and some of the guys maybe you played with on that team.
Well, my first year, my sophomore year, Herb, Dick, and I made the varsity, and Gary Wright, as a freshman, was a starter. And Coach Ted Beam was our coach that year. And we had a very good team. We should have gone to state. I'll get to that in a second. But we had an outstanding season. One of the first games that I pitched was against Russell. And I got to tell you a story or two about that because Mickey Seidenstricker was the center fielder on Russell's team. And the first time we played Russell in Central Park, Seidenstricker, first time up, hit a line drive at Gary Wright for the first out. And the second time he was up, he hit a grounder. No, excuse me. The second time he was up, he was kind of mad because, he had hit the ball so well and right at somebody the first time. It was very important at bat for him, and the game was really tight. Russell had a great baseball team. And so he comes up, and Patton, who was my catcher, and by the way, Patton was an outstanding baseball player and as well as basketball, but he's the best catcher I ever threw to. Patton stands up and he comes out in front of home plate, and he looks out to center field to Jimmy Meek, and he waves him back. Just, get on back. So then, okay, Meek goes back several steps. He's out there pretty far. We didn't have any fences back then, so you could go all the way to the ice plant if you wanted to. And so then Patton starts to take his position again. He looks out, and he gets back up and comes back out. And I think he's trying to psych Seidenstricker, but he waves Meek on further out. So Jimmy Meek takes a few more steps back. And I thought, man, this makes me look pretty bad, But anyway, Patton goes back, and then Coach Beam comes out of the dugout. True story. Coach Beam comes out and looks out to Meek and waves him back. And by this time, I can't hardly see him, but I'm really upset now. So I look out to Meek and I say, back. So I wave him back a step. He's so far out you could barely see him. Anyway, I threw the ball to Seidenstricker, and on the second pitch, and I was a curveball pitcher, so I just kept throwing curves. On the second pitch, he hit the highest, furthest pitch that I've ever seen in Central Park. It would have been out of any Major League Baseball field. Meek didn't move. He was so far out. He must have been 400 feet out. He was so far out. He didn't move. He just looked up. The ball was the highest one I've ever seen. It's coming down. He didn't move. It was right in his glove. So long as the Seidenstricker's going around first when he catches it, and he looks over at me and he says, "Are you kidding me?" It's unbelievable stuff.
That's good.
All right, in the next at bat for Seidenstricker. This was the highlight of maybe my whole sophomore year. We got 2 strikes on him. They were threatening to score. We got 2 strikes on him. Patton puts down 1. I'd been throwing curveballs. He puts down 1. That's my fastball. I shook him off. He put it down there again. I shook him off again. He comes out and he said, "I want you to throw a fastball. He's laying on the curve. You know he is." And I said, "Okay." So he goes back, and I throw a fastball a little bit in tight, right over the plate. And Seidenstricker just looked at it because nobody in the world thought I was going to throw a fastball. And we struck him out, and we won the game 4-3.
Oh, wow.
Unbelievable stuff.
That's good stuff. Now I know Herb pitched. He played third, right?
Yeah, Herb played third. Dick played short when I was pitching, and then when Dick would be pitching, I'd go over to short, and when Herb would be pitching, I'd go to third. Frankly, Herb and I did most of the pitching as sophomores, so we rotated pitching in third. Dick pitched a game or 2.
Herb, of course, Herb told the story of how he was pitching, and I guess the bases were loaded, and of course he threw nothing but fastballs, and so of course Patton gave him, the sign for the 1 for a fastball, and Herb shook him off, and he put the finger down again, and Herb shook him off, and put the finger down again, shook him off, finally came out and said, "Herb, you don't know how to throw a curveball." And he said, "Well, I want to try." So he went back and he threw a curveball and he hit the guy, and it brought in the winning run. He said,
"Yeah,
last time I throw a curveball."
That was the semifinals. That was the second game of the regionals.
Oh, wow.
And we should have gone to state that year. I'd pitched the first game, and we beat Winchester. And the second game against Paintsville, Herb pitched, and I was going to pitch the third game, which we never got to. But, yeah. Well, you know Herb. He's going to do what he wants to do, and that's okay. That's a funny story, and he tells it better than anybody.
He does, for sure. So your junior year, did you guys go to state as junior when you were junior?
Yes. Yeah, we did.
Yeah. And who'd you play in the state tournament?
We played Owensboro in the state tournament, and they had a very good team. Of course, that was the year of Alan Smith and Maysville. And Alan Smith was untouchable, as you probably know. He pitched 4 straight games. That was the last time they let anybody do that. But he pitched 4 straight games in the state tournament and won all 4 of them.
Oh, good.
Yeah, how anybody could do that, I don't know. But, yeah, we played Owensboro in the first round, and they had a nice team. There were several good teams in the state that year, and they beat us in a close game. That was another mistake I made. Patton, Owensboro had a really nice hitter named Pugh, and it was a real tight game. Pugh was up with a couple of men on, and Patton kept calling for my fastball, and I wouldn't throw it, and I kept shaking him off, and I finally said, because Pugh was right-handed, and I wanted to throw the curveball, and he proceeded to hit it off the left field wall in Stolefield and drove in 3 runs. So,
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. So then your senior year, how far did you get?
Well, we didn't get very far. We played 1 game. We got beat in the first game of the district to Louisa. Louisa had a nice little ball club, but they had a little left-handed pitcher that was very, very good pitcher. We could not score. We couldn't get any hits. You know, we had a whole team full of 340 hitters.
Yeah.
And, you know, we had guys like Conley and Fillmore and Mike Jackson that year. And we had Harold Sargent on that team in left field. We had Jim Speaks in right field and did some pitching. And we had H.F. Dixon, who was, you know, an outstanding center fielder and great hitter. And Jack Pope was our catcher. We were ready, but we couldn't hit that guy. And I heard Dick say he had blood on the ball, that he'd put blood on the ball, and that's why he was so hard to hit.
That's funny.
I was pitching that day, too, and we were only allowed 2 balls back then unless the dog ran off with one of them or something. And, I didn't see any blood on the ball, but he might as well have had anything he wanted on it because we couldn't hit him.
Sound like you had Tomcat blood on the ball for sure. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So that kind of wraps up your high school career. We talked earlier. You went to Western Kentucky on a basketball scholarship, and you know Western, of course, in the OVC at the time, and that's a pretty prestigious place to go for a basketball player. So you know, kudos to you for that. How did all that career kind of just quickly? How did that career kind of wrap up?
Well, I went to Western. I had 8 or 10 offers, and my first choice was not Western, but Ellis Johnson, who, you know, had coached at Moorhead, was a good friend of Coach Diddle's, and he came to all of our games, and he was encouraging me to go to Western, and he had told Coach Diddle that he would get me to go to Western. And my dad, when he met Coach Diddle at the regional, was just sold on him, and that's fine with me because Western was a good school, and Charlie Osborne was there, and Charlie was a good friend, had been a good friend. So I went to Western and played 4 years there. My freshman year, I was all OVC, and back then they played freshman teams and a freshman OVC schedule. And we had a good freshman team. Warner Caines went over there with me. He was going to play football and basketball. But Coach Diddle liked his height and everything, and he said he was just going to keep him in basketball. But Warner and I both played 4 years, and Western, after my freshman year, I was a third guard, almost always the third guard for the next 2 years behind 2 All-Americans and future pro players for the Kentucky Colonels, Bobby Rascal and Darrell Carrier. And I just couldn't, they were just outstanding players. And back then, you probably know this, but most of the teams, and Western was really big about, if you were a starter, you played almost all the time.
Right.
And the other guys played, you know, when somebody got hurt or fouled out or something, or mopped up. But Warner and I both had a good career. Now, both of us started as seniors. And we were co-captains the first several games. And after 5 games, in the 5th game, I dislocated my thumb. So then I was out 12 straight games. And that pretty much ended my career. But you know, it was one of the best things I ever did going to Western. We were in the NCAA tournament twice. We lost to Ohio State 2 times.
Wow.
I got to play against guys like Lucas and Havlicek and Nate Thurman, and just, you know, we played all over the nation and traveled every place, and so we were ranked 4th in 2 preseason polls in the nation my sophomore and junior years. So I didn't
realize that. That's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I have absolutely no regrets. Western's a fabulous place, and you know, hindsight's always 20/20, but I always think, you know, make a decision and go with. I wouldn't quit for anything. Yeah. And a lot of people say, well, why didn't you transfer where, you know, you could have done your thing in basketball? But I never quit, and I didn't. And, you know, I got my degree in 4 years. Coach Diddle helped me get a job. He helped me get the Thomas Jefferson job, and I went to see him when I was about ready to graduate. I went around his apartment, and I said, Coach, I'm going to graduate and I'm getting ready to get married in about a week. And he said, you got any money? And I said, no, not much. I said, but I'm getting married, and I had the job in Louisville by then, so we were moving to Louisville. He said, go down to Carter's and get whatever you need. Carter's was a men's shop.
Mm-hmm.
And I got my entire wedding outfit, black suit, black towel, my shirts, my black shoes and everything. And I don't know whether he paid for it or what, but it was all free.
Wow.
That's the kind of guy he was, yeah.
Yeah, but the connections you make with people like that are invaluable, you know, and like you said, you know, that connection probably helped you get that job at Jefferson there for sure. How long did you coach high school basketball?
I coached 3 years. I was assistant coach 2 years, and Thomas Jefferson. That summer, actually, while I was home for a week before Leslie and I married and moved to Louisville, I'd already taken the TJ job, Thomas Jefferson. When I was home for a week, Mr. Shaddles called me, and Ashland had a basketball opening, but they needed a biology teacher. Well, it so happened I was going to teach biology, and I had a minor in biology. And I went down and talked to him. I don't think anybody knows this. I've never told this story, but I went down and talked to Mr. Shaddles and Mr. Ellis. And they had talked with Bob Wright, and Bob Wright and I had a good relationship. I'd done some practicing with him and everything. So he was on board with it. And I thought very hard about taking it, but we had committed to Thomas Jefferson. They paid close to $1,000 a year more. That's not much money now, but it was a lot of money back then.
Mm-hmm.
And so we decided to go on to Louisville. But I've often thought, well, what would have happened if I had gone to Ashland?
So what were you going to be an assistant coach for Bob?
I was going to be Bob's basketball assistant and teach biology. Yeah.
Wow. And then, of course, Bob leaves. You'd have probably been the head coach, you know.
I don't know. I've thought about that, too, because the first year I was head coach at Thomas Jefferson was 66, and Bob Wright had moved on to Moorhead, and Harold Cole had taken over.
Right, right. And he had some great teams, you know, through that time frame, too. You guys at TJ, did you won the region 1 year, right? Or did you?
We, the 1 year as head coach, I was assistant coach 2 years, and then the head coach got into a little problem, and they moved me up. I was only 24 years old, and 25 when the season was over, but we were loaded. I mean, we had great players, and, we were ranked in the top 3 in the state all year. The number 1 team in the state was Central that year, and they were in our region. And we were ranked 2nd or 3rd. Mayo was always in there. Ashland was in the top 8 or 10. We played Ashland in the middle of the year at our place. And, we had a really, really good team, and it's hard to beat a good team on the road. So we beat Ashland pretty handily. But I think Ashland, and they were in the state, I think they were definitely one of the top 8 teams in the state that year.
Was that 69?
That was 66.
66, okay, yeah. That was, right. Of course, both the Lynches were on that team, actually.
Both of them were on there, and Bill played some. I don't remember whether Bill started or not, but he might have been starting forward.
Yeah, Bill and Bob, they both started, actually. And Bobby
was a sophomore that year, so he didn't. He was on the team, but he didn't play at our place.
Okay, that game, yeah. Right. He became a starter later in the year, but he was hurt at the state tournament. They had to carry him out on a stretcher. It was kind of bad. Right. But anyway, kind of interesting though it's interesting how paths cross, and you never know the what ifs and that kind of thing.
Yeah, you can't think about that, because I had a wonderful experience at Thomas Jefferson, and the guys I coached, I had Nathaniel Northington, first black player to ever play football in the SEC.
Wow.
I had Bobby Redmond, who's by some considered the number 1 football coach that ever coached in Kentucky.
Wow.
I had Ron Gathright, who went on and played for Bob Wright at Moorhead, and was all OVC in basketball and football, and is in the Moorhead Hall of Fame.
Wow.
And it goes on and on and on. I had two Unseld boys, two of Wesley Unseld's younger brothers, and neither one of them played because they were sophomores and juniors, and we had too many good seniors, but they were on our varsity. And, yeah, it was one, and because of our record, the principal told me when he gave me the job, there were 56 applicants. Everybody in the state wanted to come to TJ. But he told me when he got me the job, if you really do well and go to state and all that, we won't be able to keep you. I didn't know what he meant at the time, and he said, if you don't go, well, then we're going to have to let you go. So one way or another, I was probably leaving TJ. And I did get the offer at East Tennessee shortly after the basketball season was over, and it was full-time assistant basketball coach, and I found out when I got there they wanted me to coach tennis too. And so I took that job and went right on to Johnson City. Yeah.
And I know it wasn't. I guess it was at the community college where you won your national championships in tennis, right?
Well, that was when I came to Florida, and I was at East Tennessee 5 years. By the way, when I got there, the other assistant coach that had just been hired was from Catlettsburg, Don Eddy. Oh, yeah. Don Eddy and I coached together several years at East Tennessee. Wonderful, wonderful coach and a wonderful man.
Yeah.
I coached there 5 years, and then I went on over to Middle Tennessee as strictly tennis coach for 4 years, and I was associate professor in the physical education department. But Leslie and I loved tennis so much, and we were eat up with it, and we loved Florida. And as soon as I got an offer at Seminole, I took it. And, yeah, we wound up winning 2 national championships. We had 5 players in around 1985, 86, 87, something like that, were top 100 players in the world.
Wow.
We had 4 of them in Wimbledon. They were in the U.S. Open. My number 1 player was runner-up in the French Open and ranked 10th in the world. And our 8-year record, I coached tennis 8 years there, and our 8-year record was 273 and 23.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hard to top that.
Yeah, we had some awesome teams, always in the top 10 in the nation, and usually in the top 3 or 4, and twice we won the national. So
very impressive.
Yeah, I took over as athletic director and department chair the last 14 or 15 years of my career, and did that, and wound up having a wonderful career. 41 years in education, and 38 of those were in college work.
Wow, that's tremendous. Well, you've been you've had a great life, and congratulations on you and Leslie. A big anniversary recently here. Is that right?
Oh yeah, 57 years. Yeah,
57 years. That's impressive.
She says if I'll just straighten up, she'll keep me a little longer. So
I think it's going to work. I don't know.
I wanted to say she's the love of my life, and I have a wonderful life with her, and my wonderful daughter Kelly, 51, that lives has her own business over in Seminole County. It's about an hour from here, and that's basically my family. I have a sister in Fort Pierce that I dearly love, but other than those 4, that's about it for the castle.
Well, you still have your Tomcat family here, and we appreciate I appreciate the time you've given us, and I've learned a lot. So I know the listeners on this podcast are going to learn a lot about you too. So,
I hope so, Mark. I really appreciate what you do, and I appreciate you as a person.
Well, thank you very much. And you've been listening to the Tomcat podcast, and we hope you'll tune in after you listen to this one. You'll tune in to others. Thanks for spending your time with us today. We'll see you next time.